Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. For this episode, we have our first returning guest, and it's none other than Donny Dust. He's considered a professional caveman, survival expert, starred on the reality TV show Alone. He makes weapons with his bare hands. He's a United States Marine Corps veteran and Colorado native. But on top of all of that, Donny is just the salt of the earth. Great guy. I enjoy his company anytime that he's in here, and I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I do. 4, 2, 1. Donny Dust.
Hey.
Awesome to have you back, brother.
Thank you.
Man, it's been cool. We've been hanging out in here for a minute. Before we should have just hit record from the get-go, right?
We'll rehash all those
3 podcasts worth of stuff, but yeah, man, you got all kinds of stuff going on. You're a busy man, the busiest caveman that I know.
Yeah,
and you're social distancing. You've been out in the woods a little bit, right?
Yeah,
just coming back from that.
Yeah, I've been just kind of doing my thing. Really, just been out and about. All through Colorado. I was just out in Utah exploring some canyons, just kind of living a little wild, living a little free, and just doing what I do. It's really the best way to social distance in this day and age. So it works out, yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you staying in touch with me. I mean, we message each other every couple months or something like that, right? At least
sure.
Check in on each other. And
well, that's what it's about. You got to stay in contact with those people you want to stay in contact with, and the Mountainside, podcast, everything. It's one of those platforms that I really like. I really enjoy because it promotes people in a whole different way, and you just don't get that in a lot of places. So for me, I like to learn about a lot of people that are from Colorado and the things that they're doing. And this is one of the greatest places to learn. So absolutely.
Yeah, man, we're all about the Rocky Mountain region. We do a lot of Colorado people with this podcast specifically, just because of our location, and especially during this whole pandemic, but hoping to branch out. Like, we're going to Wyoming next week to record one, so that'll be cool. Excited to get up there. And, we were talking before the podcast. I'd love to do one remote with you at some point, too.
Yeah, let's go to a cave. Let's go to a cave. We'll do a hand drill. We'll get a good fire going, maybe roast a rabbit, and we'll just kick it in one of the caves.
Hell yeah.
It'll
be the first cave podcast, right?
We'll go down in history.
Yeah.
It'll be like a weird spin on history, a podcast in a cave, but it'll definitely work out.
And, I've said this before. We do have a lawyer next door, so if you steal our idea, we're not afraid to sue you.
Yeah, we're coming after you.
Yeah.
No worries.
At least for some royalties, right?
For sure.
Well, cheers, man.
Yeah,
Thanks
cheers.
for coming in.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Super stoked to have you. How's your dog? Last time you were in here, Finn was with you, and he's all over social media with you. It's cool because we can kind of follow your journeys on that, and we get messaged about you all the time. You're actually our most downloaded podcast.
Right on, man.
And they ask about your dog too, man. So
yeah, Finn's he's doing good. He's he hit 1 year January 1st. That's kind of like his designated birthday because he was a rescue and picked him up eating roadkill on the side of the road. So that was an instant bond because I eat roadkill. He eats roadkill. I'm like, that's my dog. But yeah, he's doing well. He goes everywhere with me. He was out in Utah. He's been out in the mountains. He is just a wild dog. He comes, he's always coming back to wherever I'm camped out or wherever I'm staying with something. The other day he came back with a half a deer head, was flinging it in the air. And I thought, maybe he caught a rabbit. And no, once I caught a whiff of it, it was a rotten deer head that he was just gnawing on.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, he's doing well. He's getting bigger. Just, I'm trying to get him to pull a sled. So, out in the snow, sometimes for classes or just for my own personal use, I'll drag a sled with some resources. And he's just not happening on the sled. So I'll wind up pulling the 50, 60-pound sled, and he just kind of looks at me like, are you going to keep up, or what are you waiting on, guys?
Right.
So, but he's doing well. He's definitely doing well.
That's awesome. How much of a help is he actually out there?
Yeah, he's definitely a help. When it comes to, taking like squirrels and small game like that, he can usually flush them or to get the squirrels start chirping, which gives me indication where they are and gives us a meal. Also,
and you haven't had a dog with you in the bush before this last year, right?
No,
really?
no.
Yeah.
I've been solo nonstop, so it's been a whole other equation I've kind of had to consider, especially his safety, and then just kind of the issues that he could come across. One day he was running through some snow, jumped head first into snow to go after something, came out with just a bloody nose. It sliced his nose open, and
damn.
Yeah. So at that point, it's like, well, what do you do? I just kind of let him do his thing, and now he just has a gnarly little scar down the front of his nose and a few other matching scars. But yeah, he's an asset. More importantly, like when the lights go out and the temps drop, he snuggles right up next to me, and we lay next to the fire and we keep each other warm. So he's definitely a bush dog. He gets very antsy when we're not out and about. So I bring him out for runs and bring him for walks. But once he's out in the bush, he's just gone.
That's his element, huh?
Oh, it's we
It's
mirror.
that saying dogs reflect their owner.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where we are very much kindred spirits in the outdoors. Where, I mean, I don't know if we talked about it last time, but I think the second week I had him, he got in front of a moose, between me and a giant moose, and
I think we briefly touched on it, yeah.
But it was that moment right there. It was like, man, he gets it. He just understands what's going on. But then on the flip side, I was out in Utah, walking through some canyons, and it's BLM land, and they're allowed to graze cattle out there. So he spooked up 8 cattle and took off for like 4 or 5 miles chasing these cattle. He was like bloodthirsty for these things, and eventually,
you wanted some ribeyes,
he
right?
did, and I was like, well, if he takes one, I don't know how this plays, but I'm not going hungry. But yeah, eventually he came back. I think he got bored when they weren't really doing much, and so he's all over the place. He really is. He's a good dog.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got a pup too, kind of around the same time. It was
Right
a
on.
little blue heeler puppy, I think, the last time you were in here, and it's grown into a full-grown female dog, man, and she's
Right
awesome.
on.
But man, it's just that instinct when she sees a deer, or I'm trying to get her to not do that. If
Yeah.
she'll take off after him, like whatever's
Yeah.
in the yard, is dead meat. And
For
she's
sure.
only this,
Jeez.
maybe 1.5 feet tall. She's little,
Yeah, for sure.
fast as hell.
Well, it's one of those unique things. There's a guy I follow on Instagram called David Ian Howe, and he's an ethnocynologist, and he studies the relationship between man and dogs, and like how early man took wolf pups and then ultimately bred them to be kind of those companion dogs and hunter dogs. And aside from Finn not really being a dog specific to hunting, he just has that like natural instinct where he'll stop, he'll freeze, and he'll kind of point in a direction. I know he sees something, so then I can kind of key in off of that and say, well, what is it that you see? Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? So he gives me a lot of alarms and a lot of warnings, and just kind of a good situational awareness. And I think, some dogs are bred for that. Some dogs kind of evolve into that, so to speak. But he's that dog where, if we're laying next to a fire at night and he suddenly jumps up and walks away slowly, there's something out there, and he's kind of going into that protection mode. So
Yeah, that's
he gets
awesome.
it.
Great alarm system.
Yeah, yeah.
For the cave, right?
For sure.
And he's a Pitsky, right? There he is right there.
Yeah,
An
that's
awesome looking
that's
dog.
Finn.
Man.
He's Pitsky, and then the vet said he might have a mix of coyote in him. I haven't had a DNA test or anything like that, but definitely the pit bull husky mix. Just a bruiser. I mean,
That's pretty cool. It rings true. Yeah,
he's a good dog. He really is.
that's awesome. What have you been up to? You've been busy with TV and film. I know the last time you were in here, you work as a set medic. You're constantly. I think you were going to West Virginia or something, right? To do a film.
Yeah. So there was a horror film that was in the works of taking place, and then I got picked up to go on as a set medic, and then coronavirus kind of did its thing.
It's changed so much, man.
As it normally does, and
Yeah.
things kind of got squashed on that. But aside from that, I've been teaching some courses, did some winter survival courses. I have some courses coming up in the Chihuahua Desert down in Texas near Big Bend. That's just really focusing on primitive skills and primitive skills workshops. And then I've just been doing a lot of my own, adventures out in the backcountry. And as a dad who has his kids half the time, when I don't have them, I'm out and about doing my thing. And so it's a balance. But it's been pretty awesome. The winter's been a very unique winter here. The snow has not been what I have seen it.
It's so dry, man.
So
it's
dry.
freaking me out.
I'm scared, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. I'm anticipating nothing but fires this entire year, like the ash falling in Boulder again, like it did this past year. So,
hopefully we get some heavy spring snow is what I'm hoping.
I'm hoping, man.
Yeah.
I just drove through the 70 and then took 24 out through Leadville, and when you take that Leadville, you go through like mid-turn, and roads were dry. I was like, I've never seen it like this. The roads are bone dry. Usually there's snowpack on them. So I was a little, alarmed. It was a nice drive, but I'm like, gosh, we need that good spring, heavy wet snow.
Sit all the runoff, all that stuff, man.
Let it roll. But
it's crazy. I can't believe I think I was in a t-shirt the entire week this week, and it's February. It's supposed to be our coldest month,
I know. Well, I think we're gonna get some cold temps this next couple of days. I think it's supposed to drop down in the teens, and then it will shoot right back up like Colorado and be like in the 60s in a week.
Don't tell anybody, man.
Yeah,
Don't tell anybody. Yeah,
exactly.
Everybody's like, whenever I tell them if I'm out of state that I live in Colorado, they're like, oh, it must be frigid cold there, and I just go,
yes,
it is.
Absolutely.
It's you can barely stand it. It's like Minnesota.
Yeah, it's like from October all the way to May. It's frigid. You don't want to be here.
Yeah. I love those T-shirts. Where did I see those? It says, Colorado sucks. Tell your friends.
Yeah. We need to start wearing those, folks. More people need to get that shirt.
Nah. But yeah, I welcome anybody, I guess, just as long as they're treating it right. But
absolutely.
Diving into the background or your background and elaborate a little bit more on your background for our listeners that maybe didn't listen to episode 20.
For sure.
This is 40, ironically.
Yeah, man.
Which is kind of cool, and it just worked out that way. But you're a United States Marine Corps veteran. You're ex-rock climber, or still rock climb, right?
Still rock climb, yeah.
You got into rock climbing and
sure.
Outdoorsman, I've always been an outdoorsman. You're a father,
yep.
Reality TV star. I mean, we're just going down the checklist here. Survival expert. You have a survival school,
absolutely.
Paleo track survival, right? Yeah,
correct,
still running that.
Still running it.
That's awesome. You work as a set medic. That pretty much sums up Donny Dust right there, right?
Yeah,
just a little bit of everything.
Easy peasy. Throw that out there in the wavelengths.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's my background is really, it comes from a lot of different places, and I think on the large scale, it's been a culmination of multiple events that have kind of led to where I'm at today. Whether it was growing up in Colorado when it was I kind of call it a virgin state. There wasn't a lot of people here. You could walk from point A to point B. And then, moving around, joining the military, and just having an interest in the outdoors and kind of living a little bit differently, kind of understanding that you can do more with less, has led me to certain, pathways and journeys. And it's culminated in creating a school, writing books, going on TV shows, doing awesome podcasts.
I missed all that shit.
I know. That's why I'm here. But it's one of those things where, it's this day and age, I find a lot of people, they're not sticking to one particular pathway for their career or for their own life pursuits. So for me, it is never really saying I have 20 years of experience. I like to say I got 1 year experience, because every year it's a brand new year and I change it. I make sure I learn something new or experience something new. So for me, there's been a lot of time and effort and energies spent outside, whether it's been overseas or in these mountains or various portions of the U.S. But it's all about what I'm doing now to make myself better, to inspire people, to promote a certain way of life, and to, make sure my kids think I'm cool. That's kind of the end state. That's the goal. As long as my kids think I'm cool, that's good for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I love that outlook on it. You touched on that a little bit on the last episode, and it changed my train of thought a little bit. It's like,
right on.
What do I have experience in recently, because I think a lot of people will reach their goals really fast sometimes.
For sure.
Then what do you do,
Yeah.
So I like that 1 year experience outlook.
It's just a simple way to say, how do I constantly progress? How do I always move forward and do different things? And for me, it's just been that idea that you don't have to stay planted in one spot. You can grow where you're planted, but you can also pick up your roots and find a new patch of soil and grow there as well. So it's just a constant, man. I can't stay in one spot. I like to travel. I like to explore and see new things and meet new people and, eat crazy foods and just kind of live the adventure. And I think a lot of people resonate with that. And, through social media, people say, you know, I wish I could do what you could do. And my answer is, why don't you?
Yeah.
You know, why don't you? Whether, you know, it's a, 25-year-old guy who's getting out of the military saying, this is what I want to do. Well, go do that. There's no reason why you can't. Don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about what people try to tell you should do.
You're only going to build your own walls, right?
Exactly.
You're your own worst enemy. All those cliche sayings are huge, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you do you, and that's just do the best version of you. And if you find that it's not the best version, make some changes, make some modifications, and move forward. But that's been my focus for some time, is just constantly moving forward, learning new things, experiencing new things, meeting amazing people, and just living the adventure.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest stories, and I wanted you to elaborate on this a little bit more if we can spend some time on it.
Yeah.
I had asked you the last time you were in here, like, how did you get started? Like, why did you do this? Why did you take this path? And we touched on that real briefly. But I think one of the coolest things is you had all this nice, like, outdoor equipment, like a badass sleeping bag and tent and whatever else you need, like the best boots, rock climbing equipment, all this stuff, right? And you one day a switch just kind of flipped, right?
Yeah, I got rid of it.
If I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And you went down and you found the homeless guys on the corner and you here's a nice sleeping bag, hope it keeps you warm, and just kind of dove off.
Yeah.
That was severe right turn.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea was that, we get kind of planted in a certain way, and we're told, we're instructed, and we believe these are the things you need to live, whether it's a TV or a car or multi-bedroom house. And for me, in my outdoor experience, it was you need these things to obtain the best experience in the outdoors. And after carrying heavy packs, whether it was in the military or as a young guy, I just kind of came to this point where it was like, I don't think I need these things. I have certain knowledge, skills, and abilities, and I'm finding that these, so-called resources, these tools aren't really necessary. So I got rid of it all, gave it to a bunch of homeless guys, like you said, and they were very appreciative. And then I kind of started from square one, and that was really understanding how did we as a people survive? How do we thrive in every landscape? And after doing some evaluations and some research, it came down to crafting stone tools and flint knapping, as it's known, lithic reduction, and the kind of the more scientific term. And everything really came from us being able to craft stone tools. So for me, I took a step back. I took one community college archaeology class, and I was like, all right, I should get some sort of formal learning, if you will, in this. And it's probably the only class I got like an A+ in my entire education, because it totally interested me. And then, the professor brought in a couple Clovis points one day. I got to feel them and touch them, and there was just kind of this connection there. And then from there, it was just nonstop. I had a guy make me some stone tools. I used those stone tools, so there was nothing left. And then I just started creating my own. I felt like I'd kind of earned the right, if you will, to craft my own by using them to, survive and thrive in different areas in different ways. And then ultimately it's been nonstop. I mean, I have a bunch here.
I'm so stoked you brought this shit. We were looking at it before the podcast, but I can't wait to hear all about this. Please spend as much time as you want.
I brought a couple for you because everybody needs to have some stone tools. Yeah, man. So I've got a really gnarly little spearhead for you here.
No way.
Yeah, and then I got a couple points for you. And the spearhead could be used as a spear as it is. You can use it to process elk. Really, it's entirely up to you. But the idea is
that is awesome.
Oh,
thank you, Donny.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Really
those guys right
man.
there too.
I did not expect that when I asked you to bring them.
No, my pleasure. I enjoy giving these things out to folks because once they kind of touch them and they feel them, and then if they ever use them, they'll see like, holy cow, like this blade right here I've had on more adventures with me, and it's works just like a regular knife. Different functioning as far as how you go about using it, but it's just as as important as a regular steel
it's
blade.
crazy how sharp these things are, man. And you use a certain type of rock. I'm gonna let you dive into it because you're the expert.
No worries.
I spent my childhood in South Park finding these, and I think we talked about that last time on the podcast. And it's amazing, even them being a couple hundred years old or thousands of years old.
Yeah,
they still hold an edge.
Still hold an edge. Yeah, I mean, only through like a really long time where they start to dull out through exposure and weathering. But a lot of the stone tools that I create are tools first. I don't focus on creating a lot of the super ornate and the beautiful stuff that's going to be stuck on a wall. I focus on building tools, and that's what I teach in a lot of my classes is build the tools to not just survive but ultimately thrive. And with all these you see here, they all serve different purposes. Like this guy here is just a hand blade. This blade,
I love that thing, man. I was picking it up as like I just wanted to chop something.
Yeah,
with it
that's
away. Yeah.
You can score around trees and pressure break them over. You can open up game, and more importantly, if you craft them the right way, you can leave them a little thick and then pull off a razor sharp flake and use that for processing anything. So this is essentially a multi-tool, and when I bring folks out in the backcountry, we use these. This is what we want to use because then they quickly realize how important this is, how they can take care of it, how they can resharpen it, and then use this for their everyday, whether it's opening up fish, whether it's processing game, cutting fireboards, cutting down ridge poles for a shelter. This one tool right there is functional. So, with the stones that I seek out and I try to find, I hunt all over the U.S. for them. I will drive for hours into Texas to find the right stones. I was out in Utah last week, and I came across some chalcedony, which is a type of kind of like a quartz-like stone, but seeing it gave me such relief because my Walmart, if you will, my hardware store was right there in front of me. Popped some flakes off, and I had everything I needed to, do the hand drill, to process some cordage, to really anything you could possibly imagine. So
I got some spots to take you, man.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I do.
I'm down.
It's an awesome stone. So
yeah. And that's really what it's about, understanding what those resources are. And that was my mindset back then, was saying, how did we do it? These resources were available to ancient cultures, and they were able to survive and thrive off of them. And that was something that I wanted to experience so I could better understand my capabilities, my limitations, as well as creating a respect for those ancient cultures and say, if they can do it, we're the same people, then I should be able to do it. And it brings that ancient way of life and thinking and, application into the forefront of today, so people can say, you know what, maybe I don't need all of this stuff. Maybe I can go out there and find a different, a connection, a different, purpose, and maybe stone tools is that pathway.
Yeah, no, these are beautiful works of art, man. And I think, even though that I hunt with a traditional compound bow, this is not, it's a mechanical piece. It's a weapon, man.
For
straight
sure.
up, man. It shoots, 300 feet per second or whatever. It's, the same thing, that putting a value on where your food comes from and what effort it takes to get it, I think is huge too, right?
Absolutely.
And this is just next level for me. But
well, I appreciate it. And, I talk with folks quite a bit about, hunting. And I say the hunt is not when you draw your bow back or you squeeze your trigger. The hunt is the hours you put in researching and scouting and being physically fit and being strong and being all these things. So when you do draw that arrow back, you're on target. And then hunting is also the processing of the animal, the preserving the meat, and all the things that you can use from that animal. That is the full picture of hunting. And I think when people take that into consideration, and whether they're using a rifle or they're using a bow, it gives them a little bit of understanding, like they are putting the effort, they are putting the honor back into that hunt by saying, this is how I'm going to go about doing it. I'm just not walking out in the woods and hoping something stumbles in front of me. There's hours. I mean, firsthand, there's hours and effort that goes into that. And whether it's with a compound bow, a rifle, black powder, a primitive bow, there's still the macro hunt that takes place, and it's all of the efforts and energies put in before and after. The squeeze of the trigger and the pull of the bow, letting loose an arrow. It's a second. It's 1 second, maybe 2 seconds,
Right.
It's everything before and after that, in my opinion, really.
100%, yeah. And to me, that's the part that I enjoy the most, honestly,
Absolutely.
is the before and the after, that adrenaline dump that you get after and the emotions that run through you. It's not like, woohoo, I killed something. It's like you get sadness, you're excited at the same time. It's an unexplainable feeling for me to explain to somebody unless they've experienced it firsthand.
For sure. I tell people I'd rather hunt 100 days in the woods and not kill anything than one day and kill something. Because, you know what I mean? It's really about being outside and walking the land and listening to the trees and the birds and becoming the pattern of life that exists in the woods. And then you truly understand the hunt and how it actually
I always call it my reset. It's a way to look at life from, 30,000 feet or however you want to say that. Like, because you're not connected to a digital device or something like. I mean, I guess you can be with modern technology, but I choose not to be.
For sure.
And it's just kind of my reset, that 12 days a year or whatever time I can actually spend out there.
Yeah.
I come back and I feel like I could see why you spend multiple weeks in the wilderness, because I come back and I feel like I'm reset and I have I wouldn't say a different outlook on life, but a more clearer picture of like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve, because you're thinking of all those things while you're out there, whether it's, building a better relationship with your kids or, all these things run through your mind, because you can be bored out of your mind sometimes just hiking.
Absolutely. Well, it's like it's a reset. It's a rewild. There's so many things that people seek in the outdoors, whether it's through hunting or hiking or camping or backpacking. And I think when people get out there, they realize that there's an innate kind of pull, an innate drive that kind of brings them to the outdoors. And there's a level of comfort in a lot of folks, and there's also a level of fear. And I think that fear is all in the mind. It's a manifestation of things that have not happened. Whether you fear you're going to get attacked by a bear or lightning or whatever, those things haven't happened.
Right.
And it's only in your mind. So once we can kind of lose that idea that the things I fear don't exist, then you just kind of let yourself go. You're kind of free out there, and you just truly live. You're like, oh, those are berries. Let me eat some of those. Those look great. Let me go swim in this stream. There's some trout. Let's spear them and eat them. Like, that's what it's really about. I'm going to sleep next to a fire naked, or I'm going to sleep in this cave with no fire because I'm feeling, just whatever it is, you can find it out there. And that's what I seek out daily, and that's what I seek out just, it's part of my lifeblood, if you will.
That's awesome, man. I admire it, man. I really do. I think it's cool what you do, and you're just a down-to-earth person.
Appreciate it.
Let's talk about what else you brought in here. So we went through some of the stone tools, and man, thank you again so much.
Oh,
These
my
are
pleasure,
cool, man.
man.
I really appreciate this.
My pleasure. Yeah,
those are super cool.
Yeah, I just brought.
Can't go down to the store and buy those.
No, by no means. So I just brought this this little buckskin bag that I've had for a while here, but these are just some of the things that I would bring out with me if I was going for a couple of days or even longer. And something as simple as a blade. This is a little basket maker style blade, just with a wooden handle and just a small stone blade on here that gives you the opportunity to process a fireboard or even process any game. It's just a tool. That's what it is. This is a leg bone of a deer into a sewing awl to punch holes, to push things through holes. But today I sewed a coyote hat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Is that out of the face, or
so I like to use the back legs, because the back legs hang, and then it folds over, and then I cut it midsection and then form it into a point, and then connect the point to the tail. So then I have the tail, I have a midsection hanging over, and I got the legs hanging over.
So it's keeping your neck, the back of your neck, your ears, all that warm, right?
Yeah, it's super warm, and if the wind's blowing on one hard side.
So hair on then, probably.
Hair's on. If the wind's blowing from the east, then I just wrap that tail around that side, and it shields my neck. So there's functionality to it, but I use a bone sewing awl when I'm doing that, and that's how I poke all my holes and run my cordage through it. And I got pine pitch glue here. This is just a natural glue that you can make out of pine resin and some moose poop, and then some wood char. And this is what you can, glue up broken bottles with. You can half points to it. This blade is set in this wooden handle with pine pitch glue. And
so how would you would heat that up with friction or with a fire?
Yeah, so I'd create a fire, and then I'd get a nice good fire base in there, and then I would gather up some pine sap. I grab some wood char, grind it all up so it's really powdery, along with that moose poo or deer poo, real fibrous materials. And I put it on a rock, and then I would just slide that rock next to the fire, let the resin melt, and then just mix it all up and then pull it out and start forming it into balls. And what it allows you to do is
as it cools. Huh?
It cools. You can carry it with you. And then
I can't believe how strong that is too, man.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's pretty solid, especially if you're hafting blades. Like that blade right there is hafted with resin. It's not going to come out. It's solid as anything. So you just understand the resources that are out there, and if something breaks or you need to modify or repair something, you can make some glue. So it's easier to carry a little bit with you, but if you run out, you know how to make it.
And it's super light too, man.
Super light.
I can't believe how light that is.
Yeah,
I thought it was a rock. When I first looked at this, I was like, is this part of a slingshot? Do you use slingshots at all, or like the
stone slings?
Stone slings. Yeah,
I
sorry,
use
that's
some shepherd slings.
not the wrist rockets that we used to have with the prefab BBs.
Yeah,
when you were
we
a
all
kid.
started with those
Yeah.
at some point. But
I broke so many windows with those things.
Crows, everything was dead. But yeah, pine pitch glue, it's a great little resource. And then, this is just a friction fire set that, I've had and I've used many fires. It's kind of worn out and busted out in a few areas. But between the hand drill and the hearth board, this is just, you place this guy up in one of your holes and you just spin it, and then it creates your dust. It accumulates, the dust superheats, forms a coal. Drop that into a tinder bundle and you blow it into flame. So, carrying something like this it makes your day easier because you can go out and craft it out in the mountains, but this is just a little bit of makes your day a little bit easier, so to speak. But all these things,
and it's good and dry, right?
Yeah, super dry. And this is just one of those things that, you can pack these things with you, but I always like to say it's important to pack things with you that will enable you to kind of have an easier day, so to speak. But if you pack this with you and you don't know alternatives or other ways to create fire, then you're causing a hindrance in your own actions, because if this goes away, it breaks.
Should always have some sort of backup plan, right?
Just a simple backup. And that's even like with this guy right here. This is just some dog bane cordage.
Which is crazy because for listeners that don't know, dog bane is just a plant that's readily available everywhere. It's almost like a weed, right?
Yeah, it's definitely considered by some to be a weed. But yeah, this is just some.
It's almost like a hemp rope, man.
Pretty similar to it. Dog bane it's really popular. Out here, you got coyote willow. You can use that to reverse wrap, but yeah. So I mean, just reverse wrapping that right there. Whether you,
that's crazy, man. It's like a prefabbed rope almost.
Yeah, it is, and you can even see the fibers on the back end. These are just from the dog bane plant, and you just reverse wrap them, and you take multiple fibers, connect them together, and make them even more stronger. And next thing you know, you have 5 or 6 feet worth of cordage. Whether
that's awesome.
You got to string some fish or whatever, it's there for you.
I love that knife, by the way, too. It's so cool. But how much time do you think goes into one of these? I mean, this is not an easy thing, right? You're starting from a round rock, basically, right?
Absolutely. So, every point, everything is really, really a little bit different. The more ornate blades, bigger blades, longer blades like this definitely require more time. But I would say once you kind of understand the dynamics of flint knapping and how you go about reducing stone that's, starts off like this right here, and then it comes into a nice thin shape like this. It takes some time to learn it, but once you got the hang of it, you could craft an arrow point or a spearhead in maybe 30 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
That comes with
a lot of experience.
A lot of experience.
I mean, I can see your craftsmanship in this, like being, my entire childhood, even up into adulthood, finding these things and stuff from primitive people. It's your craftsmanship's amazing, dude.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Like, because you can see the difference craftsmen, and I think we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast too, but you do nice work, man.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I love seeing it too.
Oh,
and let's talk about like one of the things that you recently started doing since the last time you were in here, and you were just showing me, I had no idea it was such a big deal, is you're all over TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Like making these tools. You're not on there dancing, dude.
No.
You're showing people how to make primitive weapons, which is super cool. And, I have no desire to be on TikTok until right now, until you showed me that. Yeah. So I'm going to sign up. You're going to see me. I'm going to come follow you with the other million people that are following you right now. But
yeah, it's morphed into this thing where originally my son, he wanted to go on it. And as a parent, you just want to make sure you're aware of what your kids are observing. And after probably about a month or two, I kind of felt awkward being on this app. As a 41-year-old guy, you're like, gosh, what am I doing on here? And then he was like, you should do what you do, but do it on this app. So I was like, all right, sounds good. He's kind of like my TikTok manager, if you will. And so I made some videos just to have some content on there. Didn't really do anything with them. kind of went back to it a couple months later, made some stone tools, and then it just kind of erupted where there was millions and millions of views, and people were like, what is this? Who is this guy? What is he doing? And then I kind of realized that there's a hunger out there for a lot of folks that they want to see these things. They want to know that, one, these skills exist and they can definitely do these skills, and two, it really sparks their own creativity, because I can tell you, I've had countless people, they duet me or they'll send me a message saying, look what I made. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's
really cool.
Yeah, it's the number one thing for me is seeing whether it's an 18-year-old kid or a dad out in the woods with his daughters and they're building a shelter, or they're cracking rocks, or they're trying to start a fire, and they're doing the things that I did on this on TikTok, and they're out there doing the exact same thing. So for me, that's the ultimate reward. But it's now turned into where folks are really curious about, me personally, some of the things that I do, as well as some of the things that I craft. So whether it's been, a sword made out of bones, or a club, or, how I charge my cell phone out there from a little solar panel, to how I make certain stone tools, there's just this hunger that these folks are looking into, and I'm happy to provide it to them. And more importantly, it requires, only a little bit of investment of their time, 1 minute of their time to watch a video. And I'm not trying to get them to buy a knife. I'm not trying to get them to buy a backpack or do this or do this. So I think I resonate with a lot of those folks where I'm not promoting 1,000 products because there's a following. I'm promoting their own personal creativity.
The process,
the process of it. Like, go out there and do this. I want you to go and do this. Learn from this and go out and create. This is everything you see around us has been created by someone. So this is a simple form of creation. Now you go out and create something. Show me, and I will give you, like, that's awesome, great stuff. Or how do I do this? I'll always give some sort of feedback, because if they give me a minute of their time, I damn well make sure I can give them a minute of mine. I can't get to everybody, but I try to respond to as many people, and just try to.
No, I think you're super generous with that, man. I appreciate the time that you've spent with us.
My pleasure.
Even today, dude. Like,
my pleasure.
All about it. I mean it up. But if somebody did want to buy one of these things from you, do you ever sell them, or
I do.
Like if somebody just wanted something?
Yeah, so typically, like, maybe once every month or two, I have a little online store on my Paleo Tracks website, and people can go there and pick up blades and knives and things to that extent. I usually open it for about 24 hours and then everything goes. But I'm just starting right now to do some more commissioning work. I sent a post out on Instagram saying I'm opening for commissions. I'll probably take maybe 10 to 15 of them, and then I won't be taking any more. And that's to create, blades, arrow points, whatever the case may be. If somebody really wants, just a flint knapping kit to kind of go down the same journey that I did, like, make me a stone tool kit so I can experience it, I'll make him that kit. Because I had that guy, I wish I could remember his name. He made me a kit with blades, arrow points, and some raw flakes, and a little hand axe. And that's what I use. So I kind of like to repay that in a certain way, saying,
oh, that's super cool.
I'll make you the same thing, and you can start your journey as well.
So it'd be a kit so somebody could actually just take it out and use it.
Absolutely, yeah. A full kit, or, hand blades. These, hand blades are my favorite thing in the world, just because it's so versatile. So if somebody wants a hand blade, they can throw it in their back pocket, and the next time they go camping with their friends, they can, pull out their hand blade, open up some fish, and, kind of show how you can get it done with a stone tool like that.
And I think that's where people get caught up, and that's what we were touching on earlier, is like, you got to have, a certain type of boot, certain type of camouflage, this certain type of knife, all that sort of thing. And I'm a big fan of all that stuff too, but
yeah,
just to dial it back, you don't really need all of that, and you're the guy proving that.
Yeah,
that's why I love talking to you.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think you need all this stuff. I mean, you can build a level of comfort with it, and it will give you some advantages. But just knowing how to kind of overcome adversity if it's presented in front of you is what I think my personal goal is, and what I try to stress to folks is that you can overcome this. You just have to be creative. Creativity is your number one survival skill. And when you accept that, you acknowledge it, and you try to hone that creativity, whether it's through sewing or, stonework or whatever the case may be, you're gaining a whole new level of confidence that might not exist in some other folks.
Sure. Yeah, no, I relate to that 100%.
Right on.
I've always had some sort of backup plan, whether it's matches in a waterproof container
Sure.
or something like that. Like
Yeah.
multiple ways to make fire, multiple blades.
and that's smart. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's definitely smart to have. I'll be 100% honest. If my kids and I are going snowshoeing, I bring some paracord with me. Yes, I can make all sorts of natural cordage, but if it's 10 degrees out and they blow a binding out, I just want to tie it up so we can keep going.
Yeah.
So it's case by case. If I go out on my own personal sort of adventure or journey, if you will, then I get to dictate the things that I'm gonna bring with me. But if you're going hiking with your family, I always tell folks to bring a blade, a blanket, a bottle, and some aspect of a burn or for a fire. 4 things right there that are hardest to replicate when you're out in the backcountry. So bring those 4 things, you're golden.
Yeah, no, I think it's always good to have at least something like that. And then to take it a step further, this is something that you teach at your school, right?
Absolutely.
And you have some books that you've written on this as well.
Absolutely.
So there's multiple ways to learn. Maybe you can't come to Colorado or wherever you're offering some of these remote schools. You have some great books out there.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and drop the names of those and where people can pick those up?
So you can pick them all up on Amazon, or you can go to donnydust.com. You can pick them up there. You can go to, I believe, the Paleo Track Survival. I have a bookshelf on there with some of my books I recommend for folks that, I have read and I kind of live by. They're good, solid books. But, yeah, my first book is called Scavenger. You can see it up on the screen right here. This is kind of a primal approach to lifestyle change. It kind of talks about some of my methodologies. So at the age of 37, I had a heart attack, massive heart attack. It was known as a widowmaker. Almost died. It wasn't because I did drugs or I did anything crazy. It was just kind of a genetics thing, and, it just happened. So what I did is I went and lived out in some caves and kind of reset myself, like you said earlier, and said, you need to heal, and nature, the outdoors, the wild places is the best place to heal. So I kind of chronicle and kind of break down some very simple things that people can do to kind of rewild, if you will, and kind of maintain what I like to call their mental, their physical, their emotional, and their primal well-being. And I capture all of those in Scavenger. And then Earth Roamer, my second book, which was actually one of the topics in Scavenger. A lot of people wanted to know more about that, so I wrote Earth Roamer, and that is a little bit more of a survival manual mixed with my approaches and direct methodologies into the outdoors. So understanding, my concepts when it comes to building shelters. If you're in the middle of the mountains and you got 1 hour left until daylight, you're not going to spend 4 hours building this extravagant things. Maybe it's a pile of leaves and a blanket over the top of you.
Right.
You crawl in, you're dry, you're warm, and you pick up and you move the next day. So I kind of give people a different approach and kind of an idea on how they can, earth roam or be an earth roamer when you're out there, because that's kind of what I call it. I'm always earth roaming. And I kind of highlight some of the stories that I've had in there, from being picked up by the Polizei in Germany from sleeping under a bridge to, being picked up by the police.
Because they thought you were homeless?
Well,
I guess you were, right? But
yeah, I was. Well,
I want to be out here.
Well, no, I flew into Munich, and I was going out there to teach, and I flew in a couple days early and didn't really realize it with all the time changes. So where I had to go was like way up in like northern Germany, and I was in Munich, and I didn't really know any German. All I had was a photo and the name of the place that I was supposed to go. So I kept pointing to it, being like, how do I get here? So after a while, I took like 4 buses, multiple trains, and eventually I got off in this town, had no idea where I was. I walked into this beer hall, had a nice, tall beer. It started to rain. So I wasn't really the most welcomed there. They kind of could tell I was, from America. They kind of gave me a different look. So I walked out, started raining, and I, hunkered up underneath this bridge. So I'm like, I'll just take a nap. And next thing you know, the Polizei, their sirens were going off, and they were parked underneath there. They put me in the back of the car, took my passport, and then eventually I was like, I'm just trying to go here,
Right.
I'm trying to go here. Can you drive me? They said no. They waited for the rain to stop and then let me go. And then I walked into this town, and there was this lady who had a hair salon. She let me sleep in the back of the hair salon. She locked me in there that night and said she would drive me there the next day. And sure as anything, I'm getting locked in this hair salon. I'm sleeping, like I'm soaking wet, sleeping in this hair salon. And then the morning comes around. She comes in with like a coffee and a pretzel and says, let's go. And she drives me where I need to go. But yeah, I kind of chronicle and talk about some of those things in Earth Roamer and some of the adventures that I've had with the earth roaming concept in mind. So it's a fun book. a lot of good responses. People really enjoy them, and it's just the ideas. What I present in those books isn't a rule book. They're ideas, so you can take what I've shared, craft it into your own, come up with your own kind of approach. But there's no rules. There's no special clubs.
It's not a guideline.
Yeah, it's not a guideline. You don't have to have these 5 things to be in the cool guy club. You do you, the best version of you. Here's some ideas that might help shape your own approaches going forward, and that's really what they're about.
That's a great outlook.
I appreciate it.
Man, I love your stories too, man. I'm sure you have a plethora of them. And last time you were in, you had mentioned, you were taking a couple SF guys out and you'd cut some back straps off of a fresh lion kill.
Yeah.
Do you got any more I'm sure that you do, but one that really sticks out in your mind, like just stuff that's happened to you, whether you were teaching or have you had any major injuries while you're out there, like crafting stone tools or anything?
I've shaved portions of my fingers off. I've given myself stitches down to the bone. I mean, this was a couple years ago, but I was walking barefoot out in the collegiates, and I think I found the only piece of glass, and it split between my big toe and my next toe, maybe like an inch in, and it was just bleeding. And then I had to turn around and walk back, and I was just, there's all sorts of injuries. I've walked into branches that are like perfect puncture wounds. And you treat them with what you have, and you just kind of rock and roll with it for the most part. But yeah, I mean, if you're out in the woods, you're going to get hurt. That's just one of those things which comes into good situational awareness, understanding your body and the natural hazards. I don't think there's ever been a time that I've gone out in the woods where I haven't come home with scrapes, cuts, bruises, something hanging by like a few pieces of like skin.
Dude, you should see me fly fish.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm not the guy to wear waders or anything, like especially in the summer. It's just like a pair of board shorts and my fishing pack and fly rod, and I am just throttled by the time I get out of there, because I get after it, I guess.
Yeah,
I like to bushwhack.
It's gonna happen, man. Scrapes and cuts are like, what happened? You're like, well, I just went for a walk. You're like, what? But I mean, anything. I've slept next to fires, and then all of a sudden the logs pop, and then all of a sudden a coal lands on me. I'm sleeping, and then I'm like, God, what is that? What is that? And I wake up, and there's this burning ember on my stomach, or just everything is a constant for the most part. But I mean, there's been lots of stories, and I think we talked about. I was in a cave once, and I felt something licking my toes. And I was
don't know. Did we talk about
I don't
that?
know.
No. Well, let's talk about it again, because I don't remember it.
I was out there by myself. There was no one with me, no students or anything. But yeah, I was sleeping in this cave, and like my fire had kind of like died out. It was just down to like embers. And, I was slowly being woken by something licking my toes. And I was like, what? And it was dark in this cave, and I could feel the wetness on my toes, and I kind of picked my head up, and there was it was a juvenile bear, a smaller bear. But there was a bear licking my toes, driving that long tongue right in between my big toe and my other toes. I let out a huge scream, like one of those blood-curdling ones. If somebody was videotaping, I'd be like, oh my gosh. It let out this growl, this huff, this like just gnarly noise. It took off out the cave. I lit the biggest fire I'd ever made in my life and sat there all night, like looking out the entrance, like if this thing is coming back it's game on, guy, But it just happens. I don't know why.
That's what freaks me out about bears is they just eat you alive. They hold you down and eat you alive. Dude, it's not like
this one was getting an appetizer. My feet get pretty gnarly during the summer and spring, so he was probably like, maybe I walked through a berry patch. I don't know, but he's just driving that toe or his tongue in between there. And I would say, is this a good dream? I don't know. This could be a good dream, but wake up and there's a bear staring at you. But yeah, and that's a rare thing. I mean, I've seen bears. You've seen bears. Usually they want nothing to do with it.
They're pretty elusive for the most part.
They're pretty sketchy. I mean,
what freaks me out is how silent they are, man. They are such a big animal. And like where I hunted this past fall is in an acorn patch, and it was just so dry this year that there was so much downfall leaves. It was really, really hard to be quiet. Like I just gave up, honestly, trying to be quiet.
Moccasins.
At one point. Yeah.
Get some moccasins. That's the key, or barefoot.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about getting some of those, whatever those, I went barefoot. I actually went in my socks at one point on the stalk.
Right on.
And my uncle thought I was crazy, but I took my shoes off, man. It was time to eat. So.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
I actually shot a buck that night too.
Nice.
But got a little bit crazy, but yeah, no, those bears rolling through those, you don't even hear them, man. It's insane.
No, and that's one of those things I think people, they try to pick up are what are the sounds animals make in the bush, like the step or the step and slide, and that's where you're kind of like, what is that? Right. I'm not familiar with that sound, and then you're like, it's got to be a yeti. It's a moose. It's something that's going to destroy me, and then you find out it's a squirrel that's like rooting through the roots, and yeah, it's just like
yeah, it's always the squirrels that get me because I think, is that a deer? Is that a buck? And it's pretty thick area in there where we're at. 20-yard shots basically only, and
right on.
You hear a squirrel, it's so quiet in there. You're like, oh, that's a buck. No, it's not. Damn it,
another pine squirrel.
Yeah.
Well, let's take them. We'll eat them.
So with COVID and everything going on in the world right now, how busy has your school been? I mean, have you seen an influx in people like now they have time, maybe they're thinking about life a little bit different?
Yeah. I mean, I think I ran some winter survival classes, and those draw in some numbers. People aren't the most, into going and sleeping in a snow cave in Colorado at 12,000 feet. I get it. There's no judgment. But I have seen a good increase in numbers. There's a lot more curiosity and just sustainability. How do I self-sustain? How do I enhance my own wilderness self-reliance? And some of those things come from a lot of food preservation, clean water acquisition, as well as like
water's
hunting.
Key, right?
Water's key, yeah. And that's what a lot of people are wanting to learn, not necessarily, for doomsday, so to speak, but if they find themselves in a situation or maybe even around their own home, what are their own kind of, neighborhood resources that they could utilize? Because when the lockdown came down and people couldn't go out and get their food, I felt comfortable because I was like, well, there's a lot of cats and dogs. I'll take those, or I'll just walk into the woods and, go that pathway. But, people are curious, like, what else should they know? What else could they be doing? And I think through, my social media, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, or whatever the case may be, people are learning those things. And that creative spark, that curiosity is starting to take hold. And that's where, like, we should learn these things. We should learn how to do X, Y, and Z if it just ever happens to pop up.
So when it comes to water for you, I know we briefly touched on this, and a lot of times you'll boil it, right, to purify it.
For sure.
But if you don't have a fire, what are you doing there? Are you trying to...
Yeah. So I look for direct water acquisition, which is fog, rain, snow, dew in the morning, things like that. Springs. Colorado has tons of springs.
They're all over the place.
All over, and people don't know how to truly identify them, whether it's a long spring.
Well, even if you find one, it's hard to get the water out of it sometimes, right?
Yeah. So there's lots of ways, whether you're digging for it, whether you're just, if the ground is soft, you can push into the ground and create a depression, and that water will fill up in there. But I always look for areas and ways that I can consume water directly that I know is clean. Now, you're always taking a chance anytime you do that. But in the event of a real life situation, or you're like, I need something to drink, I put my face in it and I start drinking it. If I don't have the means of a metal water bottle, or there's no springs, or there's no moisture, and we know in Colorado sometimes there's not a lot, I'll look for just different methods where I can find streams, lakes, and rivers, things like that. And then I'll build some sort of vessel, whether it's out of wood, I'll hot rock boil, whatever the case may be, to try and just purify that water the best I can. And sometimes, anybody that's spent a day in Colorado knows every time you breathe, you talk, you move, you are losing moisture. So water is paramount here. So for me, one of the things that I try to do to mitigate just the risk, because, as, heart attack survivor, if you will, I got to stay hydrated. It's one of my things. So I have no issues bringing that metal water bottle out with me. But even if I'm filling that metal water bottle up with dirty water, I'll try and boil it out later. And I think it's really important to have that backup fire, like you were talking about, having some means. So yeah, I feel very, very, well-versed and probably, a little bit more advanced than some when it comes to making friction fires. So there's a lot of times I won't bring anything. But if it's one of those unique times and it's just we haven't had any moisture, or it's like midsummer, it's not early spring, or one of the 12 springs we have here, or that fall timeline, maybe I'll bring a metal water bottle and a ferro rod, something like that, so I can collect some water, some dirty water, and process it.
Right.
But that's what you get to pick. Like I say, most survival situations are self-induced. People will put themselves into these scenarios like, I'm going out this weekend and I'm going to survive. I'm going to bring these 12 items and I'm going to survive. Well, you have a certain control over that. And even when I go out, I have a control over that. So I'll mitigate certain risks just based off the time of the year, and then I will, implement other sort of strategies. But you always try to solve that problem up front. That's really where you learn. If you want to go out and survive for a weekend, don't bring a lot of things, and then I can guarantee you'll create the things that you need.
Yeah,
real
or you'll
quick.
go home, right?
Or you'll go home. Yeah,
you'll find your car real quick.
You'll point the camera the other way, and your car's right behind it. Yeah, I know those types. They're out there.
Yeah, no, I've done it firsthand, man. I've gone out on some trips, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it, so it's time to
that's smart though.
back
That's
it
smart.
up. Yeah, you have a plethora of different skills and weapons and stuff that you can make and hone. I think I've seen you use like a boomerang before on some of your stuff, like just messing around with stuff. But do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So the boomerang or the rabbit stick is probably one of my top favorites.
Have you taken game with that?
I have. I've took game with it on the last TV show because it also doubles as a club as well as.
I got to go back and watch those. I still haven't, man.
No worries. I haven't seen it either. So
we got a lot of fans of you on here.
Oh, no worries.
I might get some hate mail over this shit.
That's all good. But yeah, so I like a rabbit stick just because it's easy to craft. You can literally pick up any stick and throw it. A rabbit stick has a lot more, design to it, a little bit more aerodynamics, so you can obtain long, straight, and accurate flight. So I love crafting those. Any of the classes I teach, that's typically the first thing that we create, because you could be, foraging for berries and a snake pops up and you can bang it on the head. Or you could be walking around somewhere and some Eurasian ringneck dove, which is an invasive species here, you could take that bad guy if you had to. So it's a real easy solution to getting some food. And I think from there it kind of goes into like the atlatl and then the stone sling. More of those kind of like ancient weapons. I really just
sure. I mean, if you're really down to it and you really need to eat, right, you're probably not going to have time to craft a stone tool.
No,
you're going to pick up something heavy and chuck it, or build a trap, or something like that, right?
We've seen grouse. You can throw a pebble at a grouse. They don't move. Some do.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's
so
just,
when they do move, they scare the shit out of you.
You're like, oh my god, Satan's coming out of the woods, But yeah, I mean, I love a rabbit stick. I carry them in my truck with me. I typically go pretty much everywhere I go. Even when I was out in Utah, I had one with me. It's just that one weapon that, if you have to employ it, you have that option right there.
Yeah.
Finn likes them too. I'll throw him, he'll go get them. So it's a good relationship.
Dog toy, right?
Yeah, it's totally a dog.
There you go. So you spend a lot of time in the mountains, but you're also a desert dweller. I mean, you kind of jungle all over the place, right? Like,
yeah.
On some of these TV shows, you've been in the swamp. Like,
yep. Yeah. There's a lot of locations that I seek out just for my own personal kind of adventures. Whether, last TV show was in a swamp for 30 days, living out there, crafting crawdad traps, making cordage, smoking hog meat, making atlatls and throwing them at possums. And regardless of the environment, I think it all provides a lot of different opportunities to learn. So I never really lived in a swamp. So when I went there, it kind of forced me to kind of say, all right, what's here? What can I use? What can I not use? And kind of adapt to that environment. So everywhere I go, there's an adaptation that takes place. It's the physical, the mental, the emotional, and that primal adaptation that you assume when you go there. A lot of people like to fight it. But if you just accept it, become part of that pattern of life, you'll find yourself living in it pretty darn quickly. So whether it's a jungle or some coastal region, a swamp, high mountains, desert, you name it, I think I seek them all out. And that's the other thing that my school does that's a little bit different, is that we will go to where you are. Everyone likes to come to Colorado because it's a nice little vacation, but it's also important to go to the places that you frequent, the places that you roam, and then it requires me to have a little bit more knowledge, skills, and abilities into those areas, but I can provide a good foundational stone, because the same fundamentals to make a friction fire here in Colorado also apply on the East Coast, Florida, Texas, wherever. So it's not understanding you don't need to know 50 types of woods. You need to know the properties of the woods that make a great friction fire. So there's a family out in Ohio I spent a week with. They had 800 acres. It was a single mom, her 2 kids. She was a former pro motocross racer. She outdoes, or renovates schoolies right now. Great thing. But I went out there and spent a week with her and her boys, and we walked their land. We caught fish. We ate berries. We built shelters. We cooked over the fire. We built traps. We did a lot of things that was organic to their home. And that's what she was looking for with her kids, was saying, we'll travel, but we live here, and this is where we might need to resource things. So we want to know this. And I went out there, spent an entire week with them, and they walked out like a couple savages. Just these kids were carrying spears and stone slings, war paint on. They were ready to go. It was just, and that's what it's about. Like, I love going to where people are, because that's where they live and that's where they should learn.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. We had a couple episodes ago, we had Forage Colorado in here.
Right on.
Orion Aon, great guy, younger guy, bow hunter, forages all kinds of mushrooms and plants, super into it, teaches a bunch of different schools. But one of the things that he does is he just goes to people's backyards and he's like, you can eat this, you can have this.
Absolutely.
So
that's key.
I think it is key, man. And a lot of people don't realize what's in their yard that's edible or that you can eat and it actually tastes good.
For sure. With this family, when we did our first day of classes, we did a foraging class. We walked 100 yards and probably found 9 to 10 different things that we could eat, use as a medicinal plant, or use for some sort of tool.
Wow.
They were just like, this is right here. I'm like, it's all right here. Like, within 100 yards of, where we started. They're like, this is amazing. Like, this is what it's about. You know what I mean? You have so much stuff right here. Like, it's at your fingertips. So,
right.
Those are the good ways of doing it.
So medicinally, what are some things that you use here in Colorado or in the Rocky Mountain regions that I know we talked about willow bark the last time you were in.
Yeah.
And people keyed into that. They wanted to know more, and I just sent them straight to your website to go bug you.
Right on.
Because I was like, I'm not the guy to ask. You got to ask Donny. But
I think out here, so willow bark's a great thing it helps with headaches and different cramps. It's essentially our first form of aspirin. You can still buy willow bark aspirin on most of your Whole Food stores, things like that. One of the plants I go to out here is yarrow. Yarrow is a great plant. It helps with all sorts of issues, whether it's, I sought out yarrow when I was on a loan because I knew it would help kick the gut problem that I was having. I couldn't find any. I know exactly what it looks like, and I've used it countless times, but it's one of those things that helps with a lot of bacterial sort of stuff and
be considered like a probiotic to the normal world or something like that?
Not necessarily a probiotic, but antiviral. It's like it will help clean a lot of your insides out. It helps with wound care. It's just one of those really great plants that once people learn it and they identify it, they'll be like, oh, that's yarrow, boom, and then I can definitely use it. Colorado has some diverse plants. The hard thing about Colorado is we don't have a lot of deciduous forest. We don't have a lot of leafy forest. A lot of it's pine, a lot of it's aspen, and depending where you're at in elevation, you get some scrub oak. Right. You can find some willow, things like that. So I always consider Colorado to be similar to a desert environment. In a desert environment,
high mountain desert, right?
Yeah, you see 5 things. You know what those 5 things are, and they work or they don't. Same thing in Colorado. You can walk up in the mountains into an aspen grove and see aspen conch growing on an aspen tree, the aspen bark. You can see the willow. You can see some burdock. You can see a couple things and be like, this is what I got. That's all I got to use. There's not a variety of weedy plants growing above 10,000 feet. So you really have to kind of hone your skills and say, this is what I have. This is what I'm going to use. This is what they're going to help me with, whether it's – and I teach folks to do what I call the straight 8, and it's in my my book Earth Roamer. So the straight 8 is understanding 3 plants that you can eat, 3 plants that have some sort of medicinal value, and then 2 plants that can be used as a tool, cordage, saps, things like that for glues. And I say you study those 8 plants for a full year, because how yarrow grows in springtime is different than what it looks like during winter, but can you still use the roots? Same thing on burdock, same thing on some of your thistles, dandelions. So if we understand the full cycle of the plant, then we can also say, well, if I am out there in the winter and I see some Queen Anne's lace growing up through the snow, it's dead, but I can still get to the root, I can use that. So it's understanding the full life cycle of that plant and then how you can use it in different seasons. But which
makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you think about it just in a general or a common sense type
absolutely
mindset,
Absolutely.
That makes so much more sense than
Yeah.
I'm out here just looking for this.
Well, like rose hips, they will grow throughout the year, and then winter will hit, and they'll still retain the actual rose hip on the plant. You can still see the rose hip on there. So that's a great little wintertime thing to mix into teas, give yourself some vitamin C, and help with any dehydration and even some sort of indigestion as well. So
Nice.
They do exist. You just got to go out there. There's a lot of books. I have some books on my site that go over like medicinal plants, some Peterson guides, and a lot of those really just kind of point people in the right direction.
And how did you, once you kind of dove into that, where did you get a lot of your education in that? Were you reading other people's books or something?
Yeah, so I read a lot of books, and then there was a portion of my life where I was a vegan. I was on a dare. Somebody dared me to do it, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I was a vegan for like 2 years, and it totally removed an entire food palette off my plate. You weren't eating meat, so you only had plants. So you force yourself to learn what those plants are, and it's just a lot of research, picking up, old guides that highlight different medicinal plants, and then seeing how they relate to current guides. Are they the same? Mushrooms, polypores that grow on different trees. And it just comes down to writing and research. And then you take what you learn and then you bring it out to the woods. You bring it out to the bush and say, all right, this is what I'm seeing in this book. Does it mirror and match what's up on that tree or growing on the ground? And then you start experimenting with it and working out the different solutions, whether it's a tool or an edible or some sort of medicinal plant.
Have you ever made a mistake where because I think that's a common fear, right? Like mycophobia and some of these other things. Like, have you ever accidentally ate something that made you sick or?
No, I mean, when it comes to plants, or whether it's mushrooms or berries or barks or anything, if I don't know exactly what it is, and I'll be the first one to be like, I don't know what that is, it's not going inside me. Usually, if it's completely foreign, I just stay away from it. It's you just err on the side of caution, because I'll be the first. I don't know them all, but it requires you to say, all right, I don't know this, so what I should take a mental photo, drew a sketch of it, so when I do come across it again, I can have some knowledge. But I've never really experienced anything that has caused me to get super ill or sick or anything like that. It's just you just err on the side.
You're eating what you know, right? That's kind of
you eat what you know.
The premise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
it comes down to like people are like, well, foraging is probably a lot easier than hunting. Well, absolutely, you're right, but you should always fish first. Fishing first is like the number one thing. People say, I'm going to go look for this plant. Well, there's a stream with a bunch of trout in there. Like, they're hiding underneath the bank. You can catch them with your hands.
They taste damn good,
and
too.
They do,
brook trout, man.
Yeah.
Native trout
That's
where it's at.
So fish first, forage second, hunt third, or you do fish first and forage kind of simultaneously. But, everything's...
And a lot of those plants grow by the creekside, right? Because they need water.
Bingo, exactly, yeah. So they're all out there.
So what do you got coming up next for you? I know you got some classes and survival classes and stuff coming up. If somebody wanted to take advantage of those, if you want to drop your website.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to paleotracksurvival.com. I have some desert workshops taking place down the Chihuahuan Desert, just north of Big Bend in Terlingua, Texas. 3 different workshop dates, and basically they are focusing on more of the skills. We're not going to be walking remotely. We'll be doing some Dave movements. We'll sleep in a canyon, but it's going to be focusing on water, food, shelter. We're going to be crafting some gourd water bottles. We'll be doing some stone tool work. We'll be making some sandals. We'll build some simple weaponry. We're going to talk about a couple of the plants out there. One of my favorites, the creosote plant. Just a great medicinal plant, great resource plant. I've actually used that plant on movie sets when a couple gals were having some menstrual issues. It totally helps with the menstrual cycle. Yeah, I mixed up.
So what is that? Is it the same sort of creosote that they would use to like cure a railroad tie, or is that?
I don't know about that.
I think that's like an oil or something.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is kind of an evergreen plant, and it's actually one of the older plants to exist. So creosote will grow in a central bundle, and then it will grow out into a circle. And the plants on the inside will die out, and it will allow it to continue that circle, that ring. So if you fly overhead, you see huge rings of creosote. They could be several hundred years old.
Really?
Yeah. But you get like certain oils from it. They go great in your beards. There's a lot of bugs out there. One of them is called the blister bug, and it will bite you and you form a blister, but you can rub creosote on it. You can do a spit poultice to remove cactus. So you take up some of the leaves, it gets real sticky, spit in your hand, it gets even stickier, and you can use it to wipe out the real fine hairs on certain cactuses.
Huh.
And then also if you work it into a tea, it's really, really bitter, but it helps ladies with their menstrual cramps that they could have. So I was working on a movie out in Terlingua a couple of years ago, and someone was like, do you have anything? And I'm like, oh man, I've got stuff. It's over here. But I'm like, I know of something if you want to try it. She said, yeah. She put it down, and then within like 15 minutes, she's like, I feel 100 times better. I'm like, boom.
Wow.
That's just how it works. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and you can pull all sorts of oils out of it to create salves and different things like that. So yeah, that's one of the things we're going to be going over out there. We'll be talking about the sodal plant, yucca plants, all the different desert plants that you can utilize out there. It is a harsh environment, but the fundamentals of the friction fire that we do and the sheltering and just understanding the flora and fauna will translate into any environment. So I've got people coming from...
Not to mention this time of year is probably the best time to be
yeah.
down there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. June, July, it's like 110.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, we'll have like 60s and 70s. It will be a nice weather, but... yeah, I've got folks coming in from Virginia to California, from Texas, Colorado, Florida, really all different corners of the U.S. We're all going to flood into this little nice remote spot. We're going to walk wild and just kind of live underneath the stars. Best stars you can see, to be honest with you. And, yeah, we're going to go out there, kick some great skills, get it done, and people are going to walk away with some stone toolkits, some really cool water bottles that we're going to make out of gourds.
Is there still room to sign up for that if people wanted to?
Absolutely. So my entire first offering is completely booked up. My second and third offering have a couple spots on there. So, yeah, if you want to go on there, just go to Paleo Track Survival.
And that's the month of March?
No, it's February. It's February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's
awesome. So just around the corner.
Just around the corner, yeah. So it will be definitely good. Yeah, you sign up, I'll send you your welcome package, give you the exact location. It's pretty remote, so
cool.
It'll be a good time.
What are some of your fan favorite classes that you offer, like certain times of the year, spring, summer, fall, whenever?
Yeah, so I like doing a lot of like early springtime classes in the lower elevations when things really start blooming, because then you get a lot of things you can eat. All the medicinal plants, the streams open up, you can start pulling out some trout because they're super hungry. So I enjoy those. Those are kind of those more like 3 to 5 day hunter-gatherer courses where people just kind of lose a lot of the modern amenities and we just kind of go out and live off the land. Those are super fun. I love doing stone tool classes. Spend 3 days.
I'm gonna come take one of those.
Yeah, you got to.
Mark my word, man.
Absolutely.
Like, you got to bug me about that the next time you have one.
No worries. Yeah, it's a great class. People come in thinking I'm not going to be able to do this. It takes years, and it does to craft certain things. But again, stone tools. We're here to create discoidal flakes for knives. We'll create some real simple points and some hand blades. And then we will actually go out and use them. So I kicked the class off by giving them a bunch of stone tools, kind of the same way I did it. Say, let's go out and use these for a day. Let's cut some things down. Let's understand how they work and why they work. And then let's go back and create them. And then once you understand how they work, it's easier to create them, that you don't need all the kind of ornate sort of stuff. You just need a sharp blade to open up this rabbit. And you're like, wow, that makes so much sense. So we use them, we create them, they create their own, then we go use their own. And then sometimes that class will segue into like a 5-day hunter-gatherer course. So we'll build all the stone tool kits up front, and then we'll go out and we'll use them for a couple days.
Wow.
I love those classes. Yeah. They're the best. They truly, truly are.
So what else do you have coming up? You're a man of many trades, but do you have anything coming up in TV and film?
I'll say, I can't go,
what you can speak on, I guess.
I can't go into a lot of details, but I'll just, stay tuned. You never know when I'm going to pop up on something, but, no guarantees and anything, but, just stay tuned. I mean, awesome. I'm sure I get photos all the time of my face still on Netflix for Alone all the time. Like, is that you? I'm like, yeah, it's me. A little bit shorter hair, a little shorter beard, but yeah, it's still me. It's still doing my thing. But,
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can go back and watch the whole catalog of those, right?
Yeah, I think
Netflix.
so. I think so. I haven't watched too many of them. I know I'm guilty. I haven't watched the show, but they're on there. You can definitely go back and follow the journey of everyone.
Perfect. I got to ask you, we ask this with most of our guests and stuff like that, and I asked you the last time you were in here. We kind of hit on, if people are new to the area or new to a mountain region, anywhere, Montana, Wyoming, Canada, anything like that. What are some things that you think that they should seek out first like before they even go into like a survival class or something like that. Just a real general, just moved into the area.
Yeah.
What are some things you need to be aware of? And
I think Colorado is very unique. I think understanding the weather is super, super important here. Understanding it could be April and we can still get snow in upper elevations. But I think people really need to understand the weather patterns here and then what their body is doing in the different elevations. There's a lot of 14ers, a lot of seekers out there to hit those 14ers. But when you start at 10 grand, you go to 14, and all of a sudden you can't understand why you're getting dizzy. It's because you try to run up that thing as fast as you can. And you're losing all that oxygen. So I think a good weather study and understanding the elevations is probably one of the most important things that people do here in Colorado, because that will keep you up on the mountain. It will bring you off the mountain sick as anything. I've had clients that we've walked up and we've had to walk back down because they've gotten sick. So definitely understanding the weather and the elevations out here. And then
I could be mistaken though too, but I think weather is the number one killer.
Out here
in the wilderness. I mean, long before a bear. Like if you look at statistics, and Anna, you might need to pull this up, but like
exposure is
exposure's number one. Lightning's huge, right?
For sure, yeah. The exposure out here, because it is so. I mean, it's gnarly. I mean, you've been out in the mountains, and then all of a sudden you're like, there's huge rollers. They're 30 minutes out, and we've got an hour and a half walk down. It's that relationship to you.
You get caught up real quick,
You're done, you know what I mean? So I think people need to understand that, and then that should force them, or they should have a better understanding how they should pack for that day or for that adventure. Saying,
or where to seek shelter if you end up in
where to seek shelter, how much water I should pack. If it's still March, April out here, it might be 65, 70, but I get to, 12, 13 grand, it might be 30 with the wind.
I've seen it snow at 4th of July at 9,000 feet. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? I didn't pack for this.
Exactly. So it's kind of like packing the right equipment, and don't be, under the impression, we're going out for a 1 hour hike. Well, that 1 hour hike can turn to 4 or 5 days in a bad situation. I've been out on the front side during a march. It's super warm. You wake up and there's 3 feet of snow. You're like, what in the world happened? Then you got to pull your buddy's truck out by a climbing rope because he doesn't have 4-wheel drive. So, understanding the weather, the exposure, the elevation, especially out here, that's paramount. I mean, the wildlife, if you stick to your main trails, you're not going to see. You're not going to. I mean, you go up.
Don't go poke the bear. Right?
Yeah, leave the bear.
Leave him alone.
Leave the bear.
Go the other way if you see him.
Exactly.
Don't go
turn around
somewhere.
Go.
Yeah.
But I think those are probably my focus on people. I mean, that's what I relate to a lot of the clients is like, you understand the weather, the elevation, and it's gonna make an impact on you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the number one. Absolutely.
There you go. How to survive your first Colorado winter from a Colorado native.
Yeah, stay off of I-70.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you need to know.
That's probably the most dangerous spot
number one.
Be, yeah.
I was coming up to 70, and then all of a sudden the Aspen Pass was closed. I was like, are you kidding me? That's why I had to go 24 to Leadville and then over Climax. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And there was nothing but like, no offense to like Texas and Californian plates, but
there's so many out-of-state plates.
So many out-of-state plates. And
insane.
I was like, God, you guys need to understand the weather out here as well, because it will definitely get you.
Yeah, especially if you show up in your car that has, just your normal street tires on it. Yeah. They're probably totally worn down. I think that's probably why we've seen in the last couple of years there's been a chain law effect come in.
Good. Yeah.
So now if you're traveling on I-70 and you don't have chains, they can. I don't know what they can do. Either have you pull over or write you a ticket. Yeah. I don't know what the stipulations are there, but.
Well, I think if anything, it should just pull you over and give you a heads up, like, hey, you're about ready, because you could start right over, in Evergreen, like right off the 70, and then drive up to the tunnel, and that 30 minutes.
Oh, it's
whiteout condition.
20 minutes. Yeah, you can be in totally different. Well, even today or yesterday, I had to run down to town to Denver. And it was colder down there. It was snowing down there. And I was up here, and it was T-shirt weather, So it just fluctuates, man.
That's Colorado.
Yeah. If you don't like the weather, stay another minute or whatever that cliche saying is.
For sure.
We get those microbursts, too, where it's just like it'll be nice and calm, and you'll get 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts all of a sudden,
I know.
So, like,
it's crazy.
Yeah. You never know. It's definitely living here, you can appreciate it a little bit more. And I think spending some time here, it makes you more aware the power of nature sometimes, especially when it comes to like a wildfire or something.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm urging people. We're gonna get some. Hopefully, we're gonna get some firefighters in here before the fire season starts.
For sure.
We're gonna hammer that hard because
that
was crazy last season. I think a big contributor to that is people recreating. More. Because a lot of those fires that started were not natural, they were man-made fires.
Campfires. Well, I mean, coronavirus shut everybody down, so everyone went out into the bush more. Awesome. But that, you have a responsibility when you head out. For one, pick up your trash. I pick up more trash than you could possibly imagine. And, like, two, if you're going to build a fire, like apply those good fundamentals. Understand where the wind's coming from. Have your dousing, resources, whether it's snow or water or dirt, to put that fire out completely.
Yeah.
Because there might be no wind when your fire's on. You're like, oh, it's just smoldering, but it's Colorado. Wait 5 minutes, then it's 60-mile-per-hour winds blowing ash into a pine, and then you just got to keep your head in the game. I mean, I always tell folks, if you're going to build a fire, build it right, but what is the purpose of your fire? Is it a fun fire? Like, we're going to sit around the fire and tell stories?
Build it as big as we can.
Exactly. There's a purpose. Yeah, there's a purpose to it. So if you're boiling water, well, take the sticks you need, boil your water, make sure it's out. But if you're cooking on your fire, well, you don't cook on flame, you cook on coals. You know what I mean? Like, understand what your fire's purpose is, and I think that will also help mitigate a lot. And then just put your fires out.
Yeah.
Use dirt. Watch
and
your
pay
fire.
attention to fire bans. They're there for a reason, and I think
everywhere.
that a lot of that was we had a ton of people recreating from out of state, and maybe you don't know, so just be educated in it before you just go out and play in it. Yeah. I'm guilty of it too, man. I'll run out, I'm the first one. Like, if I do have free time, I want to get out. So maybe I don't know all the rules, but I think taking a couple steps back.
Something I had to do, because even though I spent a lot of time out in the woods, is I wasn't building fires, which is difficult for me. So somebody that is out there all the time who relies heavily on fires to cook and to do all sorts of things, I had to bring a little stove. I still live and played by the rules of what were being, issued out there and being mandated. As much as I would love to go into a cave and build a fire, I had to invest in like a little jet boil little stove and a little fuel canister. I still play by the rules.
And that's one thing that you do too. Like, with all of the classes that you teach, and even when you're out there, you're going by the state regs too, which is awesome, right? Yeah, because if not, you're breaking the law, and it's a federal offense too, by the way. So absolutely.
So it's one of those things where, it's a responsibility, and I think every Coloradan, every person out of state needs to adhere to that. And I think the one downside is all the counties put in their own different fire bans. I feel like we should break the state into like a little bit more like regional.
Yeah, because it goes by county by county. Yeah. It's more confusing. It's like
the most confusing.
If one county has a fire ban, they should just ban the entire state, in my opinion.
I agree. To be honest with you,
I mean, if we're facing those kind of conditions, like maybe you could do a western slope, front range type of deal, because there's more people here. But
well, when I was traveling back during the fire ban, I went to the Great Sand Dunes, and there was no fire ban at the Great Sand Dunes. People on either side of my campsite were having fires. It was
some people just weren't even paying attention to it, because it was during archery season.
Yeah.
And I know 3 or 4 camps where we were at, where we had our base camp set out.
Smelling it.
Yeah, it's like, crazy.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. People just, it's just that responsibility. It's the same as putting your seatbelt on, just put your fire out.
Yeah.
Same as wearing your mask these days, put your fire out.
Yep.
Watch your fire for 5 minutes after, see if any smoke's coming from it. And if it is, put it out. Wait another 5 minutes. What's 5 minutes?
Drown your fires, people.
Drown it out, right?
Well, let's wrap this thing up, man. You've been here for a couple hours.
No, it's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the gifts, man.
My pleasure.
I did not expect that when I asked you to bring these in. That's really cool, dude. I'm going to leave them right here so all our other guests can admire them too, man.
For sure.
Yeah, man. Donnie, thank you so much for your time. And I feel really bad I didn't get to do this last time, but thank you for your service, too, man.
No
I try to thank all of our veterans and active military, first responders, all those sort of people. I really appreciate what they do and what they've done. So
absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Great. Thank you so much. I love coming up here.
Dude, you're welcome.
This is my favorite podcast.
Yeah, let's make it a more regular thing, man. We'll have you back. You're a great guy to hang out with.
I appreciate it. For sure.
Yeah, you're welcome here anytime. So.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Let's reconnect during the summer, and we'll have some more adventures and more
Yeah,
stories.
dude. Maybe the next one will be in a cave.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. We're gonna go remote, folks.
All right.
Next one's in a cave.
Anna, can you hike up to a cave with us if we?
Oh my
needed?
God, absolutely! I would have so much fun with
Okay,
that.
we might not bring the camera switcher, but
Anna's got.
we'll
this.
get some good footage.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Oh my God, I'll just come for fun.
Yeah, just come out. I'll get Finn, and then maybe he'll work a sled by then, or with something with wheels, or we'll put Finn into this one.
Oh, we'll figure it out,
Yeah.
dude. I'm used to rucking, like, in the summertime, I'm normally rucking 80 pounds.
Right on.
Getting ready for those elk quarters, which I
Right
didn't
on.
get this year, but so I can carry this podcast
Right
gear in, no problem, bro.
Well, we gotta reduce the 80 pounds down to 5. We gotta go more stone. Then you don't have to ruck 80. I'm talking smoking when you're out there.
There you go.
Right on, my man.
All right.
Very cool.
Thank you guys so much. Anna, you doing okay back there?
Oh, we're doing
We got
great back
everything
here,
good?
Bobby. We got it all on lock.
All right. I appreciate everybody listening to us, our fan base. Please reach out to us. We love hearing your messages, and we'll forward anything we get to Donny as well, too. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.